The latest Sussex drama is not only about one trip, one magazine cover, or one awkward week in Britain. It is about a familiar pattern that keeps repeating itself. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle say they want privacy, control, safety, and a healthier relationship with the royal family. But the moment a private family situation begins to unfold, details somehow find their way into sympathetic media outlets, and the public is invited to see the story through the Sussex lens. This time, the focus is a report in People magazine, published less than a week after Harry and Meghan were understood to have reached a careful understanding with King Charles and Buckingham Palace around their visit. According to the criticism now being made by royal commentators, the agreement was simple. There should be no public briefing designed to shape the story in favor of one side. After years of mistrust, leaks, interviews, memoirs, documentaries, and carefully timed media narratives, the palace wanted the visit handled quietly. Yet almost immediately, People magazine ran a cover story presenting Harry's return as a major royal reunion, describing the turbulence of the trip, the dispute around security, the court loss, and Meghan's absence from public appearances.
Today, Meghan Markle breaks her agreement with King Charles and Buckingham Palace to leak to her friends at People magazine less than a week after that promised meeting with Charles and Queen Camilla. Meanwhile, Prince Harry has arrived back in the United States.
That is why this story matters. It is not just that the magazine published flattering or sympathetic lines about the Sussexes. It is that People has long been viewed by critics as one of the friendliest American outlets for Harry and Meghan. The couple have had close connections to the magazine's coverage in the past, and Harry himself has previously communicated with People directly. So when the magazine suddenly runs an exclusive cover package about the trip, quoting sources close to the couple and framing Meghan as supportive, saddened, and unable to stand beside Harry because of security concerns, many observers see it less as independent reporting and more as a message from the Sussex side. The headline line was revealing Meghan Markle always lets Prince Harry lead when it comes to the royal family. At first glance, that sounds like a simple statement of respect for Harry's family relationships. But in the context of this visit, it reads as something more strategic. It distances Meghan from the messy parts of the trip. It suggests that Harry is the one handling the palace, the family, the decisions, and the fallout. It allows Meghan to appear loyal without appearing responsible. And crucially, it gives her a sympathetic role in a week that otherwise did not produce the kind of royal imagery or public victory the Sussexes may have wanted. According to the People report, Meghan had planned to be by Harry's side for several outings, but security concerns supposedly prevented her and the children from making the full visit to Harry's home country. That claim is now being strongly challenged by critics, who argue that nothing material had changed about the security arrangements. Harry and Meghan already knew the system. They knew that automatic police protection had not been restored. They knew that RAVEC, the body responsible for assessing royal and VIP security in the United Kingdom, had not suddenly upgraded their position. They knew that as private citizens outside working royal life, they would receive protection based on specific risk assessments rather than blanket coverage. So the obvious question becomes this: if nothing changed, why did the narrative change? Why was the public first led to believe that the whole family might come, only for the story to shift into a discussion of danger, uncertainty, and Meghan's absence? Critics argue that the security issue has become a tool of narrative control. When Harry and Meghan want sympathy, the security story returns. When they want pressure on the palace, the security story returns.
But as you saw from that People magazine cover, they couldn't hold their silence. What they had told King Charles was a lie, because look at that. Harry's royal reunion at last. His family visit Charles as new drama unfolds inside Prince Harry's turbulent UK visit, from a public palace dispute to a crushing court loss to a long-awaited reunion with King Charles alongside Meghan, Archie and Lily. But why this matters, of course, is that we know that Prince Harry...
When a public appearance fails to happen, the security story returns. It becomes the explanation for everything, even when the facts appear largely unchanged. Harry's own movements also complicate the argument. He arrived back in the United States without obvious difficulty. He had been able to move in and out of the United Kingdom privately. There were no dramatic airport images, no paparazzi chase, no visible security crisis, and no public evidence of the kind of chaos that would justify the level of alarm suggested by some briefings. For commentators who have argued for years that the Sussexes can travel privately when they choose to, Harry's smooth return looked like evidence that the system is not as impossible as he suggests. Then came the Time 100 event, where Harry appeared in front of photographers with a very different energy from the one he often adopts when discussing cameras and media intrusion. The same prince who has repeatedly spoken about the trauma of camera flashes and the dangers of press attention was filmed smiling, turning for the photographers, engaging with the red carpet atmosphere, and even praising people behind the camera. To his critics, the contrast was glaring. When cameras are controlled, flattering, and attached to prestige, Harry appears comfortable. When cameras belong to the press he dislikes, they become part of a larger threat. That does not mean Harry is never entitled to object to press behavior. His history with the media is real, and the death of Princess Diana still shapes the way many people understand his fear. But public figures are judged by consistency. If Harry asks the public to believe that photographers are a source of deep distress, then highly polished red carpet appearances invite scrutiny. The optics become even more difficult when he appears at a celebrity gala shortly after a week dominated by legal defeat, family tension, and claims that security concerns kept Meghan away from royal-related events. Meghan's absence from that event was just as notable. When Harry is being celebrated, she is often close to the frame. When a title, a gala, a royal-adjacent platform, or a prestige magazine moment is available, Meghan usually understands the value of being seen.
Paul says the Duchess planned to be by her husband's side for several outings. However, there was an about face when security concerns prevented her and their two children from a full visit to Harry's home country. Now, again, this is totally intellectually dishonest reporting from People magazine. There's been no about face. Nothing has changed. Like, they got the security that has already been agreed. So no about face, just to correct that. Anyway, it goes on.
So her decision not to appear beside him at this particular moment led to speculation that she did not want to be photographed with Harry during a week when he had suffered a major courtroom loss and attracted heavy criticism. That is only an interpretation, but it is the interpretation many royal watchers are now discussing. The court defeat hangs over everything. Harry's legal action against the publisher of the Daily Mail was not just another case in his long battle with the press. It became a test of credibility, judgment, and strategy. After the ruling, Harry and the other claimants issued a statement attacking the outcome as a whitewash and saying they had sought justice and accountability, but received neither. Critics saw that as an attack on the integrity of a High Court judge and, by extension, the British judicial system. Former Justice Secretary Alex Chalk was among those who condemned the tone, arguing that disagreement with a judgment is legitimate, but insulting a judge in such terms crosses a serious line. That matters, because Harry is not an ordinary celebrity. He is the King's son. He may no longer be a working royal, but his words still carry constitutional weight in the public imagination. The monarchy exists within a structure that depends on respect for Parliament, the courts, and a free press.
Certainty every time he comes or they come. Can I just give Harry and Meghan a newsflash? It's been resolved a long time ago. There is nothing to resolve. You're not getting it unless there's a specific threat. So you're the ones creating this constant drama. And you know that. It's just People magazine lying. One of the clearest reminders of Meghan's absence came at the one-year countdown to the 2026.
Robert Jobson, a veteran royal reporter, made the point that Harry was effectively attacking three pillars of the system his father is sworn to uphold: an elected government, an independent judiciary, and a free press. For Harry to do that while also seeking proximity to royal residences and royal status creates an explosive contradiction. This is why the reported offer of accommodation at Buckingham Palace became such a sensitive issue. If Harry had stayed at the palace and then issued or endorsed a furious public statement attacking the judiciary, the image would have been disastrous. It could have looked as if the king's own residence were being used as a backdrop for a political and legal attack. Critics argue that the palace was lucky the situation did not unfold that way. The offer was reportedly pulled back or not used, and from an institutional perspective, that may have prevented a far worse optical crisis. The palace, as far as this story shows, largely stayed quiet. That is the key contrast being drawn by commentators like Tom Sykes. His argument is that the public drama around the visit was not started by Buckingham Palace. It was started by the Sussex side, or at least by people acting around.
And I'm just pointing it out to you, is just full-on pro-Sussex propaganda, because actually Meghan could have been there. She planned to be there. My belief is the reason she didn't attend is because she didn't want to be pictured with Prince Harry on the week that he had had the most significant courtroom loss in modern history. He is a loser. She didn't want to associate with him this week because, again, nothing in the security.
According to that analysis, Harry and Meghan's team first allowed or encouraged the idea that the family would travel to Britain for a dramatic rapprochement. Then the story shifted into uncertainty over whether Meghan and the children would attend because of security concerns. Then, after the visit, sympathetic reporting suggested Meghan had been left saddened and humiliated by the way events unfolded. If that sequence is accurate, then it becomes difficult to present Meghan as simply the victim of a public process created by others. The palace did not need to brief dramatically. It had every reason to keep the matter quiet. Harry and Meghan, on the other hand, had every reason to shape the narrative. They needed to explain why Meghan was not seen. They needed to frame the security dispute in their favour. They needed to keep the royal connection alive without accepting responsibility for the chaos surrounding it. And they needed, above all, to make the story about what had been done to them rather than what they had chosen to do. The children are the most sensitive part of this entire issue. Prince Archie and Princess Lilibet have done nothing wrong. They are young, private children who deserve stability and protection from adult conflict. But the moment their possible presence in Britain becomes part of public negotiation, the emotional pressure on King Charles changes. Charles is not only the monarch, he is a father and a grandfather living with cancer. If he is told that his grandchildren may be coming to Britain, perhaps for the first meaningful time in years, it is almost impossible for him not to want to see them. That human instinct can be used, whether intentionally or not, as leverage. This is where Robert Jobson's assessment becomes important. He suggested that Charles may have been boxed into a difficult emotional corner. As king, he must protect the institution. As a father and grandfather, he may not wish to refuse contact with his son and grandchildren, especially while dealing with illness. Some may see that as weakness, others may see it as basic humanity. The late Queen Elizabeth II might have handled the situation with a harder institutional line. Prince William, if he were king, might also be less flexible. But Charles is in a different position. He is both sovereign and wounded parent, and Harry knows that.
The controversy, because it boosts their brand, it boosts their numbers. But the reality is, you summed it up brilliantly in that intro. But you know, this has been a fiasco. It's been a circus. But actually, has it really hit anybody? You know, I thought actually it was quite. After all the toing and froing, it was quite low key. The bigger picture was on Wales's and them at Wimbledon and William playing polo, and we didn't see her, and we only.
Queen Camilla's presence at the meeting also sent a message. Harry has been harshly critical of Camilla in the past, particularly in Spare and in interviews around the book. He portrayed her in a deeply negative light and suggested she had been part of damaging press dynamics inside the family. For Camilla to be present alongside Charles was therefore significant. It made clear that access to the king does not mean bypassing the Queen. If Harry wants a relationship with his father, he cannot pretend Camilla does not exist or continue treating her as an obstacle to be removed. Some commentators believe Camilla was there partly to protect Charles from making promises or being emotionally pressured. That may be too dramatic, but it is reasonable to think she provided support and balance. In a family meeting after years of accusations, memoir revelations, and public attacks, the conversation could easily become emotional. Keeping the focus on the children would be safer than reopening every grievance. Camilla's presence would also remind Harry that his father is not isolated. Charles has a wife, a court, advisors, and responsibilities. He cannot simply slip back into being only par in a private room. The bigger question is whether the meeting actually repaired anything. People magazine and the New York Times both ran stories that appeared to frame Harry as making progress with King Charles, while the relationship with Prince William remained frozen. People quoted sources saying there had been no movement on William's side and that the situation remained badly broken. The New York Times emphasized that Harry's trip lacked a reunion with William, even as it suggested a partial thaw with Charles. For critics, the timing of those articles was suspicious. Two sympathetic stories from two influential publications arrived on the same day and pointed the public toward the same conclusion. Harry is trying, Charles may be softening, but William is the obstacle. That framing is powerful because it turns William into the cold brother. It suggests Harry has opened the door and William refuses to walk through it. It invokes Princess Diana by reminding readers that the brothers were once close and implying that she would be devastated by the rift. It also separates Charles from William, making the king appear more forgiving and the heir appear more stubborn. For the Sussex side, that distinction is useful. If Charles can be portrayed as open to reconciliation, Harry retains royal proximity.
Pulled that away from him, but he was railing against the independent judiciary, calling it a whitewash, taking on the free press in a way that, frankly, is not really acceptable in a world that we're living in, when we're getting prime ministers coronated without even debate, and also attacking a High Court judge, and also suing the government. These are the three pillars, a free press, an independent judiciary, and a government that is elected, that his father, as the king, is...
If William can be portrayed as the barrier, Harry can continue to claim moral effort without actually repairing the deepest fracture. But there is another way to read William's silence. Kensington Palace did not appear to engage with the New York Times report. Harry's side reportedly declined to comment on the record, which does not necessarily mean no background guidance was given. William's side, by contrast, seems to have simply stayed away. That silence may not be coldness, it may be discipline. William has learned that every response can feed the Sussex machine. If he says something, it becomes a story. If he agrees to a meeting, it becomes a symbol. If he refuses, he is framed as unforgiving. In that situation, silence may be the only power he has. William also has reasons not to trust Harry. The Oprah interview, the Netflix series Spare, and multiple public remarks placed William, Catherine, and their family inside a global media storm. Private disagreements became monetized content. Text messages, arguments, family tensions, and intimate details were shared with the world. For William, reconciliation is not simply a matter of two brothers hugging after a long argument.
Make herself the victim in all of this, somehow. So he writes, "What was it that was so awful this time, Pitt? The audience with the king at his Highgrove sanctuary, the offer of an apartment at Buckingham Palace, maybe? No, apparently it was the very public way the back and forth about the visit was conducted." But Tom adds, Jobbo, hang on a second. It was her team that fired the starting pistol on making public this entire psychodrama by issuing unprompted an operational note to journalists confirming.
It is a question of protecting his wife, his children, the monarchy, and the future reign he is preparing for. Trust, once turned into material, is not easily rebuilt. That is why the suggestion that the brothers' rift should have softened by now misses the scale of the damage. Time alone does not repair betrayal. In some cases, time makes people clearer about what they will no longer tolerate. William may look at Harry and see not only a brother in pain, but a risk. He may see a man who can leave a private room and months later describe the room, the conversation, the emotional tone, and his version of everyone's motives to a broadcaster, publisher, or favoured journalist. No future king can operate that way. The cousins' lack of contact adds another sad layer. Archie and Lilibet reportedly have no real relationship with William and Catherine's children. That is tragic, but it is also a consequence of adult decisions. The Sussexes chose distance, both physical and institutional. They chose to build their life in California. They chose to speak publicly about the royal family in ways that made private closeness more difficult. It may be true that the children are innocent, but innocence does not automatically erase the distrust created by their parents. The financial angle may be the most uncomfortable part of the story, but it cannot be ignored. Commentators increasingly believe money is central to Harry's decisions. The Sussex lifestyle is expensive. Private security is expensive. Legal battles are expensive. Maintaining a mansion, staff, public relations support, travel, and a celebrity-level public profile requires a constant stream of income. The early years after Megxit brought enormous deals, including streaming and audio contracts, a memoir, and global speaking opportunities. But the impression now is that the easy money has slowed, and the brand is not generating the same excitement it once did. Harry's legal defeat could become financially painful. Reports and commentary have raised the possibility that costs could run into millions. The male side is expected by some to pursue costs, and even if the final figure is lower than the most dramatic estimates, the burden would still be significant. Elton John, who was also connected to the litigation, has been mentioned in commentary because some believe he is not interested in helping cover Harry's financial exposure. Whether or not those details are exact, the larger point stands. Harry's war with the press is not only emotional, it is expensive, and it may now be costing him more than prestige. Security costs sit at the heart of that financial pressure. Figures around the Sussexes' private protection vary, but commentators often cite numbers in the millions per year. If Harry could regain state-backed security through Ravec, critics argue that he would not only gain protection in the United Kingdom. Depending on how arrangements were structured, he could potentially reduce or remove a major private security expense when traveling elsewhere. That is why some see his security battle not purely as a safety issue, but also as a money issue. Harry's supporters would reject that interpretation. They would say he served in Afghanistan, has faced documented threats, belongs to a uniquely exposed family, and deserves serious protection. Those arguments cannot be dismissed. But the counter-argument is also strong. Harry was warned that leaving working royal life would affect his security status. The then Prince Charles reportedly urged him to think carefully about the consequences before the final break.
And I'm sure, like you, like me, feel they're totally innocent. But they are being used in a way that is pretty despicable, because what's the king supposed to be? You know, what's the king supposed to do? He's told his grandchildren are coming to England, and that his son and daughter-in-law would like him to meet them and to have some sort of interaction with them for the first time in 4 years, for the first time in their memory, really. Of course he's going to say yes. He's a kind man, really, the king.
The palace gave the Sussexes time to reconsider. The transition was not a trap sprung overnight. It was a choice with known risks. For a while, Charles helped financially. Commentators claim he paid heavily toward the Sussexes' security and support in the first year after their departure, before eventually making clear he could not be treated as an endless bank. At the time, Harry and Meghan appeared confident that commercial deals would replace royal funding. The money from media contracts seemed vast. The global interest seemed endless. The freedom flight narrative made the move sound heroic and inevitable. But celebrity money depends on continued audience appetite, and the appetite can change. The problem for Harry is that his most reliable asset remains the royal story, but the more he uses it, the more he weakens his claim to be building a separate life. If he speaks about his family, he gets attention, but he loses trust. If he stays silent, public interest may fade. If he attacks the press, legal bills rise. If he appears on red carpets, critics accuse him of hypocrisy. If he asks for security, taxpayers ask why a private citizen in California should receive royal-level protection. Every route carries a cost. For Meghan, the calculation is different but connected. She needs the Royal Association to keep the title commercially meaningful. People magazine placing her back inside a royal reunion narrative helps with that. Even if she is absent from the public events, she remains central to the story. She is the supportive wife, the mother protecting the children, the Duchess saddened by palace dysfunction, the woman who lets Harry lead with his family. That framing preserves her connection without requiring her to stand next to Harry during a difficult week. It also positions her as a victim of circumstances. The visit was stressful, security concerns prevented a fuller return, public back and forth made the week painful. She wanted to support Harry but could not be there as planned. That is the emotional shape of the People's story. The question is whether the public still accepts it. After years of similarly sympathetic briefings, many readers now hear the machinery behind the message. They no longer simply absorb the sadness. They ask who benefits from this version of events and why it has appeared now. There is a deeper reputational danger in that. If the public begins to assume that every sympathetic Sussex story comes from the Sussexes or their allies, then even legitimate grievances may be dismissed as public relations. That is what happens when a couple spends years curating their pain. The audience becomes harder to move. The palace's silence starts to look dignified by comparison. William's refusal to engage starts to look strategic. Charles's limited contact starts to look generous but cautious. Meghan's sadness starts to look managed. Harry's security fears start to look like leverage. This does not mean every criticism of Harry and Meghan is fair. Some of the commentary around them is cruel, personal, and excessive. But the pattern they have created is real enough to fuel skepticism. They want privacy, but their version of events appears in friendly outlets. They want reconciliation, but their stories often blame the family members who do not cooperate. They want security, but they travel to places like Nigeria, Colombia, and Ukraine, which critics argue are hardly safer than London or Birmingham.
The reporting is People magazine writing Prince William and Prince Harry still have no contact. Despite Harry's reunion with King Charles, there has been no movement on William's side. A source tells People in this week's exclusive cover story. An insider telling the magazine, "It's so broken. I thought it would have perhaps eased a little bit by now, to be honest, but there has been no movement, especially on William's side." So do you see what I mean? That the blame very...
They want freedom from royal life, but their public identity still depends on royal titles and royal proximity. The Invictus Games remain one of Harry's strongest cards, and the Birmingham countdown should have been a clean moment for him. Invictus is connected to service, wounded veterans, recovery, and purpose. It reminds people of the Harry who once seemed at his best, informal, emotionally present, and focused on others. But even there, the visit became overshadowed by Meghan's absence, security arguments, palace accommodation, legal defeat, and briefing wars. That is the tragedy of Harry's current position. Even when he steps into an area where he has real credibility, the surrounding drama follows him. The podcast appearance mentioned by commentators added to the sense that Harry struggles to manage seriousness. While some may have seen his banter as harmless, critics argued that it made him look unserious at a moment when he needed credibility. When a public figure is fighting court cases, challenging security decisions, and asking institutions to take his risks seriously, casual jokes about grooming or personal details can land badly. The public is not always generous when someone switches between wounded prince, campaigner, celebrity guest, and red carpet performer within the same news cycle. This is why the Sussex strategy feels increasingly strained. It asks the public to hold too many versions of Harry at once. He is a privacy campaigner who appears in prestige media. He is a critic of the press who needs press coverage. He is a royal outsider who wants royal protection. He is an independent man whose strongest identity is still Prince. He is a son seeking reconciliation, but also a litigant and media figure who has repeatedly exposed family pain. Eventually, those contradictions begin to define the story more than any single event. The palace appears to understand this. Its strongest move is often to say very little. By refusing to feed the drama, Buckingham Palace and Kensington Palace allow the Sussex briefings to reveal themselves. If Harry's side puts out operational notes, then follow-up explanations, then sympathetic magazine covers, the public can see who is keeping the story alive. Palace silence may frustrate Harry and Meghan, but it also protects the institution from being dragged into every emotional cycle. King Charles still has the hardest role. He may genuinely want to know his grandchildren, he may want some peace with his younger son, his illness may make family contact feel more urgent, but he cannot ignore the damage done to the monarchy, to Camilla, to William, and to Catherine. He cannot give Harry full access simply because Harry wants it. He cannot make promises that bind William's future reign, and he cannot allow royal residences to become stages for anti-institutional statements. So Charles is likely to continue with a narrow, careful approach. Private contact where possible, institutional distance where necessary. William's approach is likely to be colder. As heir, he can afford to wait. He does not need Harry's approval, and he has little incentive to reopen a relationship that could expose his family to more public pain. If the Sussex side continues to brief that William is the obstacle, it may only confirm his caution. A brother who wants reconciliation does not usually pressure through American media. A brother who wants trust does not make private family dynamics part of a public campaign. William may be silent, but that silence speaks clearly enough.
Camilla, the Queen, was there as Charles, his Rottweiler, as his guardian, to make sure that he didn't make any promises or do things that I'm sure the conversation stuck to the children, because it's so easy when families have had a rift, if children get involved, they can sit and talk about the children until the cows come home, but you don't get into discussing things that have caused that rift. And I'm sure that never happened. So we're talking about, in the space of 4 or 5 years, 2 visits and 1 with the children. Camilla was really...
Meghan's next move will be watched closely. If more details emerge through People or other friendly outlets, critics will say the no briefing understanding was meaningless from the start. If a photograph connected to the king, the children, or royal property appears later, it will be treated as a calculated public relations move. If Meghan continues to frame herself as supportive but absent, people will ask why the security explanation seems to appear whenever a difficult public association must be avoided. She may still be able to shape parts of the narrative, but the audience is less naive than it once was. Harry's next move may be even more important. If he returns to Britain again, especially for well child or Invictus-related duties, he will need to decide what kind of public figure he wants to be. If he keeps the focus on service, avoids unnecessary briefing, and lets the work speak, he may slowly rebuild some credibility. If every visit becomes another battle over security, accommodation, William, Camilla, and press coverage, then he will continue to look trapped in the same cycle. At 41, with young children and decades of life ahead, he cannot live forever as the prince who left, and never stopped explaining why. The simplest reading of the week is also the most damaging. Harry came to Britain, the family situation became public, security became the excuse, Meghan stayed largely invisible, the court case went badly, Harry's response drew criticism, and sympathetic outlets quickly began shaping the aftermath. That is not the picture of a settled couple carefully rebuilding trust. It is the picture of a brand trying to manage decline while still relying on the royal connection it has spent years attacking, and that is why the People magazine story has caused such a reaction. It looks to critics like another breach of the very trust Harry needs. If he wants the palace to believe private meetings will stay private, he cannot allow every emotional beat to become a cover story. If Meghan wants to be seen as respectful of Harry's family process, she cannot appear to distance herself through friendly sources whenever the optics turn bad. If the Sussexes want a serious future in or near royal life, they need to understand that briefing is not a side issue, it is the issue. The royal family can survive silence. In fact, silence often helps it. The Sussexes, by contrast, appear to need constant explanation. That imbalance defines the current drama. The palace waits.
Court case, and look at the court case, Dan. I mean, you know, the Mao are going to go back to court to get some of that 30 million, maybe more, back. I mean, you know, who's going to pay that? Elton John has just basically allegedly said, oh, I'm not getting involved in paying for Harry's bills. So this is Harry really in a big problem financially, I think.
100%.
William says nothing. Charles allows limited contact. Camilla stands beside the king. Meanwhile, stories appear in American outlets about sadness, humiliation, security, fractured brothers, and Meghan letting Harry lead. Each story may be designed to help the Sussexes, but together they reinforce the same conclusion. The couple still cannot resist turning private royal tension into public narrative. So the question now is not whether Harry can travel safely, whether Meghan could have appeared, or whether one magazine story changes everything. The real question is whether Harry and Meghan are capable of behaving in a way that rebuilds trust. That means fewer briefings, fewer emotional headlines, fewer attempts to blame William, fewer security dramas, and a far clearer distinction between private family life and public brand management. Until that happens, every attempt at reconciliation will arrive wrapped in suspicion. For now, Harry is back in the United States, apparently without incident. Meghan remains in California, still tied to the royal story, even when she is not physically present. Charles has seen his son and grandchildren, but that does not mean the wound has healed.
Million a year in security costs as well. And see, that to me is why I think he's so obsessed about security, Jobbo, as well. It's not about his safety in the UK. I know this because I know people, Jobbo, who have this RAVIC protection. And you know, once you get it, you have to be protected wherever in the world you are. So what it means is that the UK taxpayer would be effectively funding.
William remains distant, and there is no sign that he intends to change course quickly. Camilla has made clear, simply by being there, that she is part of the king's life and cannot be bypassed. The palace has learnt that quiet is safer than engagement, and the public is learning to read the difference between a private reunion and a carefully managed media rollout. The Sussexes wanted a reset. Instead, they may have reminded everyone why the reset is so difficult. Trust is not rebuilt by magazine covers. Family relationships are not repaired through background briefings. Security is not strengthened by public drama. And royal proximity cannot be used forever as both shield and product. If Harry and Meghan truly want a healthier future with the royal family, the path is clear but difficult. Stop turning every private moment into a public argument. Accept the consequences of leaving official life, and prove over time that silence, loyalty, and discretion are still possible. Until then, every reunion will look less like healing and more like another chapter in the same exhausting Sussex playbook.